Thank you for the great music that we just heard. I'm amazed that you can play music in so many keys and so with just the left hand. It's really impressive. I must say I used to be a tuba player, and you have a lot more buttons to push, and so this. Okay. Well, anyway, welcome to this session, which is going to be about the new working group, the Traditional Folk and Global Music Working Group. And I have been asked to say a little bit about how we got here. And in life there are things that are hard and things that are easy. And one of the very, very hard things is to create a new permanent working group within the AEC. So this has been a very, very long journey. Long before also I joined the AEC, but I understood here that the Traditional Folk and Global have been a part of the PJP, have their own presentations and sessions and so, but at the same time we could see in society that the interest for this music has been growing for many years actually, growing also the interest among students, among staff. So there was, when I joined the AEC last year, you could really feel that now could be the time where this could succeed. And I still say this could succeed because at the end it's the AEC Council who approves big structural changes in the AEC. So we, those of you who were in Odense last year would remember that we had a special session on the idea of creating a traditional folk global music working group. And we had a Mentimeter survey also, which showed actually an overwhelming interest in giving this area its own working group to work out the visions for this special field within our educational institutions. So afterwards, we put together a proposal for the AEC Council, and it was successful. So the next steps, maybe you have followed that in the newsletters. We made a call for the members for the TFG working group, which was out here, I think, just after the summer holidays last year. And we had a very, very large number of applicants from all over the world, also underlining the interest in the working group and the work that this group will have to undertake. So after a very careful selection, we ended up with the working group that you will be presented for in a little moment. And I'm very, very happy that this part of our music life now has its own representation. Still, I expect that to be working together with all the others of us. That's the way that we're used to it within the AEC. And that we still can inspire us, but working deeper into this field here will also give the others, we not part of the group, but will give the whole AEC community better knowledge of what is going on in this very special field. So I think this is the point where I will give over the hand to Josh Dickson, who we asked to be the chair of this working group. I'm very happy that you took on the challenge to define the work and the vision for the working group, and I'm sure we will hear a little more about that in a moment. So please, Josh.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Finn. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you, Finn, and thank you, Bea, for helping to organize this great conference this weekend, and for all of you for having us here to taking time to talk about traditional folk and global music during the PJP. There's been a long history, I know, of inclusivity in the PJP platform and these annual conferences in which traditional folk music is really brought in a lovely and very beneficial way. So having a point where the Traditional Folk and Global Working Group now comes into existence, that's a very strengthening and a very powerful inflection point I think, in the history of AEC, but and shows its inclusivity, shows its diversity. But it's also a very powerful inflection point for the sector of traditional and folk music, world music, global musics, as it is represented and lived and practiced in Europe and of course, indeed beyond. So, as Finn was saying, we have a working group that has now come to being, and you can see here the list of the members, and you'll see that it's a quite diverse group, coming from all over Europe and indeed beyond Europe, as we see from Anatai in Bangkok and Althea from Montreal. And of course the fringes, where of course I come from Scotland, at least I work in Scotland. I'm originally from Alaska, you might not know from my accent, but we're at the northern fringes there. So we have a very diverse group, and so quite a powerful one when it comes to the representation of the multilingual, multicultural, nuanced voices that make up the traditional and folk sector in Europe and beyond. So, with that in mind, where are we headed? That is actually the most challenging point of the whole working group. This is not a group that was formed on the basis of a mandate as determined by a larger project, like the working groups that came into being with Strengthening Music in Society or Artemis or other projects organized and delivered by the AEC. This was a decision to add to the permanent infrastructure of AEC, and its mandate was very much open. So one of the huge challenges of this diverse working group is actually determining, where do we go? What are the challenges ahead? What are the future directions we could go in? What can we do? And literally, what can we do? What is it feasible for a working group like us to do? What can we accomplish? So, there are a few directions we could certainly go in, and it's really up to us, that is to say, up to the AEC, and up to us, the responsibility is ours to figure out a number of ways to go that's both feasible and achievable, and that provides outcomes that everyone can share in. So, a few ideas we had, again, taking note on what has worked before, what the kind of directions we've had before as a sector would be a mapping exercise. So I know that, for instance, the view of the current HEI landscape is actually of utmost importance. Knowing what the landscape is, what it consists of, is very important. We need to know the landscape, we need to know the sector. And occasionally, as you will all know from your own experience in your own institutions, you get surveys, you get links coming going, oh, please respond to this survey, it's 10 minutes, it's 20 minutes out of your life. And you think, oh, okay, fine. Or maybe not, maybe just think, right, that'll be in the junk mail, and that'll be that. But sometimes these surveys are extremely important, and it adds to an overall portrait of a landscape that will lead to better things. So, as a sector, within a sector, we need to know what institutions offer in terms of traditional and folk music, world music, global musics, to what extent they offer it, what is the nature of that offering. And from time to time, there have been surveys or mappings or attempts to do this. So there was certainly one, probably I suppose the most recent previous survey was by Renske and David Emil. Renske from Quad Arts and David Emil from Pop Academy Baden-Württemberg, around about, I want to say 2017, but David Emil might correct me. It's around about then. And this is a really important survey to make. It reached about 53 institutions across Europe and 24 countries. And so ultimately this survey revealed very interesting, although again slightly incomplete picture of the range of European HEIs in which world or folk or traditional music is taught and learned at undergraduate, master's, postgraduate levels, and the nature of those studies. There are always ways to improve the nuance of the questions or to tease further details out of the institutions. So as mundane as a survey might be, actually a mapping exercise is of utmost importance for us as a working group, so we know what we're dealing with and who we can represent and how we can represent them in as accurate as respectful, as powerful a way as possible, and one that does justice to these various constituencies across Europe. So as a follow-up, I suppose, to this, again, very valuable survey back in around 2017, 2018, that could begin to identify these institutions that are offering named degrees in world or global music, folk or trad, and engage with them to tease out these nuances, these challenges, the triumphs, the issues of access, entrance, parity, which is always an issue, quality, learning and teaching, assessment, recruitment. There are so many issues there that are of the utmost importance for the practitioners and teachers of folk and traditional music in the formality of higher education and higher music education environments in institutions that will only be strengthened if we have a more complete picture of what's being offered and how, and by whom. What's the map? So that's one thing we could certainly be doing, and again, just to do with the challenges of a working group whose mandate and whose directions are really up to us to interpret and to move forward with. All these things are on the table, and more. So we are still in the point, because we're still in our infancy, we are still working out the best ways forward, what are the specific directions we need to go in. So this is one idea that we have. Another is, generally speaking, would be to do with toolkits and resources, and Laura, I think, is here to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you, everybody. I'm so happy to be part of this working group. It's really challenging, and but we have, I think we all have the same perception that this is something that had to be done. So here we are, starting the process and the path. I'm going to speak about sorry, this is not the one, toolkits and resources. As Josh already said, we are just starting these conversations. We are always discussing and just starting the discussion, but these are a few questions that arise during our first meeting, and that we would like to share with you concerning what would enhance folk traditional degrees, departments, experience and outcomes. Would be a stronger academic voice. It means, could we or should we elevate the academic status by promoting academic papers, by promoting rigorous research about traditional music, by getting the recognition within the higher music institutions of traditional music. Should be the strategies and infrastructure for fostering collaboration between traditional and folk and other music or art disciplines. For example, interdisciplinary projects or joint performances or cross-cultural exchanges. Maybe also the professional development for higher education institution staff as both tradition bearers and academic practitioners. This is something, I think this is quite capital, quite important, because how we are going to ensure that all the people involved in training or in learning process related with music, traditional music, are going to be equipped with both traditional knowledge and also academic methodologies. So this is quite a challenge, and this is something that from my institutions, now talking about my own experience, this is something that we really need to see how we set this kind of maybe some training through training programs or for our staff, but this is something that we need to solve. What tools can AEC facilitate to support such enhancements? Platforms or tools to facilitate better networking among traditional music educators for project and pedagogical knowledge exchange. We need digital and physical spaces. We need a home, as Unni and Josh, we talked just before. This working group need a home, and we all need to belong somewhere in traditional and folk and global music. We need digital and physical space that facilitate connection, to learn from each other, to create new opportunities. Other point, facilities for documenting and sharing examples of successful artistic research in traditional music. In the first moment, I would say for sure, creating a repository to start the work, to try to gather all the information we have and to be connected and to learn what the others are doing, how we can learn from others, not necessarily by traveling there, but just by creating a repository with all this information that can be really useful for other institutions. And the strategies and practical examples of integrating indigenous musical pedagogy into academic systems. This is also quite challenging, how to develop these strategies to include this music with their own methodologies, or sometimes without methodologies, ensuring their sustainability in our institutions and their recognition also. So these are just a few ideas that have settled as a starting point, but I think that it's not only a question of contrast or have all what we have already know that we have, but to make it grow and to help it grow, to encourage institutions to implementing new degrees in traditional music, to explain them the benefits of doing it, and to be more connected and to make a real community, to allow us to progress in this process of being part of the music in the institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As we observe it, artistic research are developing in many different directions right now, and that's a very positive thing. And within the TFG field, we observe that there already have been produced a lot of research, artistic research. And we look forward to have a space where this research that have already been done can be shared, that we can share it with each other, that we can include it in the different institutions and activate it, that it's used, and that we get to know each other, so that when someone is researching something specific, maybe they'll find someone else, a totally different part, and that we can continue and do cooperations within also artistic research, that we can strengthen and challenge each other. And it's important for us to have our own space where we can meet as a TFG working group. For me to discuss my research with another traditional musician, it gives a different conversation than when I talk with my colleagues in Oslo from the classical department or jazz department, and we have a lot of cooperations. But when I can discuss the same research with Laura or Josh, they have a different perspective that I need to hire my research. We have a different understanding for each other. We have a different but similar background into our music. Hopefully this new working group will give us this new network, that we get to know each other, that we become aware of the others who exist. I remember in 2018, I visited a conference in Glasgow that Josh had built, and it was so strong for me. I don't remember how many participants were at that research conference, but for me it felt like 300 or something. And it was so strong for me. I could just go from room to room and listen to high-level research that I weren't aware existed. I found my colleague family. And that's one of our dreams to also do within AEC, that we find our family. How we should do this, if it's an annual symposia, if it's online, we don't know, it's just questions. And we have to work slowly and keep discussing, asking the questions till we slowly find wise answers together. Another thing that also have been a huge bonus when we've met in different fora is that we observe how others teach. And for me to talk, for example, with Laura and hear how you have built your study programs and how you built your master level, how you have all these guest teachers, that's been a huge inspiration for me. We very rarely have guest teachers for 1 week or a month. We have teaching every day, so that limits our possibility to have a guest teacher for a longer period. So maybe that is something we can include in our future curriculum. Or when I visited Josh to learn how he have these conversations with each student every half year to help the student to give focus for the teaching the next half year. Then of course, when I came back home, I just implemented it right away. And so these are small details, but that really raise the quality of our different educations. Hopefully, when we slowly find our form, and when we get to know each other more, hopefully we'll find projects that also could be relevant for applying, for example, for EU funding to build bigger projects together, and also to strengthen the possibility for mobility, that all the institutions within this field have the possibility to contribute and to attend, and really include that we have different situations from institution to institution, so that we build models that everyone are included. That's extremely important. It's also important for us to invite and have communication with the networks that already exist, like the very strong network of Nortrad, where the bachelor students and employees of the traditional study programs in the Nordic and Baltic countries meet for a week every year, or the European Folk Network that includes all the different levels of traditional music in Europe. Also the volunteer. It's also important for us to keep the communication with all the different genres within our institutions. We think that we are connected, and we, for example, like we spoke of earlier, one of the milieus that we'd like to have more contact with is the different Baroque milieus or early music milieus. So hopefully, slowly in the future, that we find these small spaces where our different music need each other to develop a higher level, to get perspectives, to get new knowledge. But first of all, that we have a space where we can share what is already done and to inspire and higher the level for the future work that we hope will develop.
So, as you can see, this is a work in progress, or indeed a working group in progress. And so that takes time. I think we're only going to meet in person for the first time in May, I suppose. So we get to know each other. We learn all about our strengths, our aspirations, our interests. And gelling through all of that is, I think, the twin pillars of wanting to strengthen the ability of traditional and folk musicians working in higher music education to speak to each other, but also how we as a sector can disseminate outward and speak to the world around us. And that means, of course, collaborating voraciously and tirelessly with the world of classical music, jazz music, popular music, early music, and everything in between and beyond. We want to be able to strengthen bridges, but also to ensure that inwardly we are creating a very solid infrastructure. And so, altogether, that means, as you can well imagine, that there's very much an ambition to strengthen ties with certainly to continue ties with PJP, with EPOM, and with other aspects of the structure of the AEC and its groups as well. So, this is where you come in. This is a point where we as a group can look upon you as the near vertical wall of delegates from the PJP and come to us, or to just volunteer your own thoughts. What do you think about anything that we've said so far? Would you comment on, or what would you suggest? Where do you think with some good directions could very well be? Because we want to be able to hear from you. We want to have these discussions, and this is maybe the first start of that. So B is here with a microphone. And so if anyone would like to, we're going to be, do these microphones work? I think they do.
They will.
They will. Hopefully they will. So we'll be very relaxed. But if anyone would have any comments they'd like to do, then B, of course, has the microphone. If I have any questions or any suggestions for future directions or future collaboration or future communication, then by all means. Of course, as we sit here, we're blind, but, oh yes, there's Jonas. Hello, Jonas.
Yes, it takes some time, but I will get there.
Hello, my name is Jonas Simonsson, coming from Gothenburg Academy of Music and Drama. Thank you very much. I just want to encourage you to continue the inspirational work. I agree that we very much would benefit with a platform where we can thrive and grow and, as you said, share our special needs for sharing experiences. And if we will continue doing this joint conference with PJP, I would suggest that we also would benefit from a change of name, so we also can hear it in the name of Pop Jazz Trad Platform, or whatever we will choose, but that would help us to feel even more included. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you, Jonas. That's really interesting. Oh, there's someone there, I think.
Yes, thank you. Just really quick, I also would encourage you to stay within the PJP community, because I think it's very much important for all the popular music and jazz practitioners to be to feel the inclusion of traditional music, because I think we have a lot in common and we really would benefit a lot from hearing our perspective respectively. So yeah, keep going, defend your specificity, but also keep feeling included in this community. That's what I wanted to say very quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, this is it's all very important point, and indeed an inevitable point of discussion, of course, is how do working groups relate genre-wise and in every other respect, and everything's tentative and provisional, I suppose, at this point. We don't know. None of us really knows how this is going to work out in the end. But of course, what we can say for sure is that there definitely is an appetite to collaborate, to ensure that there are lines of communication. Oh, we can see people now. That's great. And of course, the last thing anyone I think would want is for some doors to be shut. Yeah.
Hello, I am Aline from Denmark, and I teach folk music. I just thank you so much for taking up these very important issues. And I'm on my right side. I also have folk music student and teacher here from Spain, and we just met and had a really nice talk, and talked about how much this is needed for us. So I'm just actually repeating what you already said, but maybe it's nice for you to hear. And I told them about Nordtrad, and they were really interested in and asking why don't we have something similar. I think it would be amazing to keep working for some sort of physical attendance format. If not possible to do our own, then maybe within this conference that we have some meetings for us, because we do have some other issues to discuss that aren't only possible to discuss us, like with the people who know of these challenges that we have. And it's if also only teachers sometimes, and sometimes only students. So whether it will be a different conference or within this doesn't matter, but please keep up the good work and let's try to make that happen.
Great, thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, one of our dreams that we've just discussed, this is, as I repeat, a dream, would be to build a meeting point for master level within all these educations within AEC, and that we found a type of funding so that the master students within TFG had the possibility to work together and present the research for each other, be opponents for each other, and play together or write together, but any form. But especially to strengthen the master level, I think would be wisely at the point where we are now, also to encourage more people to apply for a PhD, because we also have to be aware that we are building the next generation of teachers. So to strengthen master and PhD level, I think is also in this box of dreams. Yeah.
So thank you very much. Yeah, we definitely want to hear from everyone who's involved in folk and traditional music teaching at that university level or conservatoire level, because of the unique challenges and unique tensions that have always tend to exist. And of course, they're not necessarily unique to traditional folk music, but there's always there are always these issues that come up to do with our, as a sector, our sense of confidence, our ability to be able to compare or to have the moral support of similar institutions, similar programs, similar practitioners. Our neighbors and colleagues and friends, we need to have these fora, these lines of communication, just as you've met today, and are strengthened by that, and ideas can come out of that actually have an impact on curriculum and assessment practices and recruitment practices and so on. These lines of communication then really build an infrastructure that does a huge amount of good for the music sector as a whole in education in Europe. So we definitely want to hear from you in the future, and of course we'll be keeping everyone up to date on that. Thank you.
Hey, oh wow, it's Tom from Bern, and I think it's wonderful, really wonderful what you're doing, really fantastic, and it made me think also that there were times also when like jazz and popular music also weren't part of academic life, and this was a fight for some people in the past. So I think that's one thing I had in mind, and also similar problems, maybe also about the kind of differences in approach from practitioners and researchers and trying to really unite those things in a meaningful way. And I would say that maybe there's also a lot to exchange on between us, more in jazz or more in pop from that point of view, hopefully as well. And I'd be really interested to hear your input on that too. And also from the point of view of things like improvisation studies and like sociology and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I think that could be a wonderful, huge work to do together, like not against the kind of Western music, Western classical music kind of thing, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Having the working group, among other things, really does send a signal to the world around us about the parity and the value of folk and traditional music in higher music education that prompts these kind of discussions. They say the lines of thinking about Western music, art music, how we think about folk music actually, and whether folk, the term folk itself, how useful is that as an umbrella term when in fact there are lots of different nuances across cultures throughout Europe in which something outwardly could look like folk music, however one might define that, but it actually is part of a centuries-old, rigorous art music of sorts. It's just maybe not Western art music, but art music nonetheless. And other aspects of that which then really give more a sense of confidence and parity when we're able to have these discussions. So thank you.
Yes, Bart Soet is from the Netherlands. And, I also wish to thank you for all your great work, and love to hear about ambitions in the master environment. I can tell from the experience of a research coach that students are challenged in a master to ask themselves more fundamental, more critical questions, and a lot of times then they translate that into the question, so where does it all come from? And then they go to the roots, and I can tell that a lot of master students actually go into traditional and folk music in that stage of their studies. So from our students, I picture quite a collection of research topics which are related to folk and traditional music. So I can for sure tell there's a demand also from them, from the students, of a network of more knowledge, because the institute in the academic world doesn't always know, you know. We are for sure challenged as teachers in the academic environment to know more about that. So thank you for that ambition, and also to share that.
Can I say a comment? Another thing that I often speak about at the academy in Oslo is that I really appreciate being together with the other Shangers, because when we talk around a specific topic, often the sleeping knowledge becomes activated. We have different knowledge into the same music. And when we listen to traditional music around all Europe, for example, the concrete music is quite different. It has an extreme manifold. at a very, very local, even at an individual level. But we have so many traditions that are connected, but with hidden patterns that we only can find if we get to know each other. For example, researchers who work at the national libraries, when they discuss medieval ballads, they don't say, for example, the harp. They say TSB 37, and then they start laughing, because they know what ballad they are talking about just by saying these secret numbers. And that medieval ballad you can find all over Europe. But that knowledge is only activated when the experts from all these different countries, local regions, meet and just sing. And then we can trace how it has developed into different languages, different traditions. And from there we can go anywhere.
You're really tracing the story of Europe in a sense, across the Nordic countries to everywhere, everywhere where the AEC touches as a community, traditional music and folk music in all those areas then really paint a picture of the roots. It's a very unifying and inclusive thing. Yeah.
Hello, I am Mario from the PJP working group, and first of all, congratulate you all for making this happen. I was fortunate enough to participate in the talks that made this possible. And thinking about the collaborations and what can be done right now in this current situation in which perhaps a platform of their own, it's a little too early, or who knows, but we are going to be meeting more in these platforms. So I would encourage you to try to get from your community of teachers and artists proposals to be part of these congresses in all those things that traditional musicians do better than anybody else, and all those nuances of things that are useful for everybody, be it for improvisation, be it for the knowledge that you have of microtonality, or many things that are specific of the traditional music field, but widely unknown for many other communities, but tremendously useful. So I agree, and that you have to find own spaces for yourselves, for the things that only you can discuss about yourselves. But if you can encourage your community to find all those things that are beneficial for everybody, you know about them, we don't. So let us know about them and share it with everybody. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah, I'd love personally to see a situation where there could be a member of any one working group that sort of then gets embedded in other working groups as well. I'd love for, say, a TFG working group member to go and sit in on the EPARM working group or the PJP working group, and just kind of have these ambassadors in a sense, and vice versa, to come in and sit in on ours. That I think might be quite an efficient way of keeping those lines open and knowledge exchange, and it helps then for planning for in whatever way we can build an infrastructure of fora, meetings, symposia, or other, in whatever way that ends up working out. It'll be helped if there's if we have a kind of a traffic, I think, between working groups. I mean, that's just me talking. I'm just sort of talking off the top of my head, but I think it'd be nice.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
First of all, I want to say I don't know a lot about folk music, but I have had my touching points with folk music, and it has always involved dancing. And I was just wondering if that is in any way, shape, or form considered in this whole planning of the traditional music, maybe also has to do with conserving not only traditional music, but also conserving the traditional dance stuff.
That's an excellent question. Yeah. I don't want to hog the microphone. Either one of you.
Well, when we work, I didn't hear everything you said, so just say if I answer wrong.
Sorry, I can do it again.
But when we work in the academy in Oslo, where I work, when we work with Norwegian traditional music, which is the main thing we do, we are not working with conserving the traditions, but we are working with living traditions. But to be able to work at the high level that I expect from my students, you have to first learn as much as possible the handcraft, the stories, the reflection, how we are thinking music. Because in my tradition, it's not about perfectionizing one form of the tune. It's the opposite. It's to own the music behind the music so that you have access to thousands and thousands of variations, and you never know how the piece will be after you have performed it. So we are in a huge and extremely strong tradition of improvisation, of variation, but often on a micro level. So, and when I listen to other singers, I can hear very fast who just know one version of the song and who really have the universe of each song. In addition of working at that level, it's extremely detailed and hard work. Each student are artistically free, and they go in totally different artistic directions. Some of them just go further and further into a local tradition. Others work with bands. Others work with in more to contemporary or cooperation with classical music. And all these different directions demand different handcraft. So when a student kind of get a new insight of who they are as an artist, we will build a team around that specific student to become at as a high level as possible. And when we work in that way, we always have cooperations with all the different milieus within the academy. I don't know if it was an answer, but we are working with living traditions. Yeah.
I think that's definitely a very interesting point. Sorry. I think it's definitely a very interesting point, but I was more wondering about, like, maybe it is a stupid question, because this is a music convention after all, but I was just thinking that folk music in my mind, as in a very inexperienced folk music mind, it always has to do with some kind of dance. I was just wondering if that is considered in this, or if it is like especially just looking into music.
Yeah.
It's connected. All the students are dancing, and what's happening in Oslo is that all the jazz musicians, they join these students and go dancing in the evening. So there's dancing everywhere. That's the new trend in Oslo. Yeah. Everyone is dancing.
Also in my institution, not as much as we would like, but we are trying to increase this amount of hours of dancing. But in any case, traditional folk music in Spain is absolutely connected to dance, and there's no other way to understand this music. And also I wanted to say, related to the first question, that I don't know if I understood also okay, but we encourage, no, we don't encourage, because it's mandatory. They need to plan a trip to the source. So one of the part of the work they have to do during the master is to go where the source is, depending on their type of work they are doing, because we have so many different communities with different folklore in each community, and they need to go there and to learn there. And then they come and they continue their work, but like doing an immersion of the work they are doing. Sorry.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, inevitably the question or the issue of dance, its relationship to music is fundamental to, or will be fundamental to the work of the working group, because that is indeed fundamental to, I wouldn't say 100%, but the vast majority of folk and traditional music in Europe. It's one of the things functionally that is a great commonality between traditional cultures, is the functional and rhythmic and sociological and functional relationship between dance and music in traditional cultures. So that inevitably has to be considered, yeah.
Great, thank you.
And the interesting thing is that because we work, and these students, and we work often with archive recordings, and the rhythmical patterns, the asymmetric beats, they are changing. So these students, they are aware that, for example, in Valdres, small region in Norway today, there are kind of 3 quarreling gangs about how the beats should be today. And then they are listening to recordings from the 50s and that person in the 60s, and they compare the patterns, and then they look at archive videos of dance, and then they get this identity crisis. But I really like the rhythmical pattern from the 60s, but what can I do when the dancers today have changed into this pattern, and how can we work together with the dancers so it's building totally new conversation. It's very interesting and very complex.
And at the risk of extending that further, I don't know what our time is like, but actually the issue, the question of dance, again, it's an excellent question, because it actually, it reveals the diversity and the breadth of traditional and folk music when we realize that not every aspect of traditional and folk music is related functionally and intimately to dance. There are great swaths of art music, which is really just for listening. Yeah. And for lots of other functions beyond dance, that actually one could argue is a form of classical music. But outwardly we might look at, it might be dismissed, for instance, as folk music, when actually, and it's traditional. And of course there's that difference to the words traditional and folk. And we get a lot of that in Scotland. It's a long running debate over pints of beer. And, but all sorts of art music, which is not necessarily really meant for dancing at all, but they get sort of subsumed within the umbrella of folk, which again then has a connotation of dance function with it. So merely the question of dance itself is really, really powerful, because it allows us suddenly to understand that folk music is so diverse. It's as diverse as culture is across the world. I don't know much about South Indian classical music, but actually, I know that it's traditional. In the same way that the courtly ceremonial pibroch tradition of the Scottish Highlands in the 17th and 18th century is traditional, but is it folk? And so these are issues which, these are maybe issues that are more related to, say, EPARM or early music, or other types of structures within AEC. Those are prime examples of how we could communicate and build bridges in that sense. So anyway, thank you very much. We're on time. Okay, I've run out of time, sorry. Right, I guess that's it. Unni and Laura, thank you very much. Finn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for your comments and suggestions and exhortations. And it's been lovely being here, and thanks, and we'll see you again soon.